Canadian judge has dropped charges which were initially brought against hospital security guards in Toronto in the death of one Stephanie Warriner, who died of asphyxiation. And a recently surfaced video shows the security guards slamming her into a wall after choking her. She died in hospital 16 days later. Daniel Stephanie Warriner died after an incident with security guards at the hospital in Toronto in May of 2020. And an Ontario judge recently struck down the case that was set to start in May. And you can see the video here of the security guards, and the video actually gets pushed, the camera does, once things start getting violent, and you can see that she's choked there and shoved against the wall. And her sister actually spoke to the media. She said, "My first reaction was shock and horror. There's been no accountability, and there's a gaping hole in my heart." She was a very tiny woman who was clearly unwell, sitting, dealing with respiratory distress, and they wrangled her to her death. There was no lawful reason for them to have put her hands on her. This ought to have been put on trial. Warriner was suffering from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and decided that she would go to the hospital. She was presumed to have COVID, though a later test would show that she did not have the virus. Again, she tested negative for COVID and initially went to the hospital for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. Video from the incident shows Warriner at the Toronto hospital lobby in a medical gown with a mask on her chin. She was told to put on the mask and was then approached by security. The incident between the guards and Warriner is now shown on the security cameras as it was turned by another guard. He says he did so because he panicked and got really anxious. The guard was able to keep his job afterwards. The coroner's report showed that she died from a brain injury due to lack of oxygen from, quote, restraint asphyxia following struggle and exertion. Her COPD was found to be a possible contributor to her death. Quote, but for her interaction with the applicants, Miss Warriner would likely be alive today, the forensic pathologist said during the preliminary hearing. So here you have a forensic pathologist all but saying that she was murdered by these security guards, and nonetheless, this judge based in Ontario was able to strike this down. The guards' names are Amanda Rojas Silva, 42, and Shane Hutley, 35, initially charged with manslaughter and criminal negligence, but the evidence, our judge saying now that there's not enough evidence to take the two to trial. Later on, quote, Mr. Hutley began sobbing and admitted he would not have been truthful in the report. He had not been truthful, past tense, in the report, and he said, "I'm sorry. I would have never said the things I said in there if I knew there was a video." The court document says. Wow. And still, the judge dropped this case. You can't help but think that this is likely due to a bigger narrative control with regards to the way the medical system is run more generally. That would be my take, not to mention the fact that she was COVID negative. It's a pretty clear case of abuse of power here. Sad to say, feel bad for the sister for sure. And that video is currently circulating Twitter as we speak of her being attacked. Stay frosty, folks. Public intel. More updates to come.